Somebody's coming up the steps.
Good morning and welcome to the June 6, 2023 Gates County Board of Commissioners Special Joint Meeting with the Gates County Board of Education, pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143-318-12. I am Dr. Anthony Riddick, the 2023 Chair of the Board of Commissioners. I am joined this morning by Commissioner Jonathan Craddock, Vice Chair, Commissioner Linda Hoffler, Commissioner Brian Roundtree, Commissioner Emily Truman, County Manager Scott Sauer, Clerk to the Board, Jolitha Chestnut. I am pleased to recognize and extend a special welcome to the Board of Education. Mr. Ray Felton, Chair, Ms. Sally Ryan, Vice Chair, Mr. Leslie Byron, Ms. Amanda Heinbacher, and Mr. Ronnie Riddick. Commissioner Jonathan Craddock will now lead us in the prayer and Pledge of Allegiance. Let's stand.
Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father God, we come to you this morning, first of all, to give you thanks. Thanks for this day that you have made, and let us rejoice and be glad in it. Father God, we ask you to settle down with us this morning as we conduct county business. And we welcome the school board, which they have tough decisions to make. Father God, we just ask you to give us discernment and honesty. Father God, we ask all these things in your name above all names. Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Again, welcome to the school board. We're glad to see you here. Last time you hosted us, and we're going to conduct ourselves accordingly. You made us feel welcome, and you are welcome in this space. I'm going to start off the meeting by just setting some to-dos so that we can follow along and with clarity and with an agenda. So I have some opening statements to make, and then we'll go forward. About a month ago, I spoke with Dr. Williams. And during the discussion, I requested a 1 to 5 year financial plan. And he did that for us, and I saw it on Friday. I talked to him about it, and we made a couple of formatting changes, not much. I did not touch the content. That is his plan for the school board, and that's your plan. But we wanted to see a 1 to 5 year plan. Each of the commissioners will have a copy of that plan. It incorporates fiscal year 2023 to fiscal year 2027 to 28. Again, when I looked at it, we did not make any changes to the content at all. It's just that we wanted to see a plan going forward. So today, we're sitting jointly. The first goal is to have the school board or Dr. Williams or whoever he chooses to present that plan for next year. Let's do one thing at a time, because that's why we're here. Look at the 2023-2024 budget year as far as going forward. We know what the matters are, the challenges are. We're going to help work through that this morning. I think we got a plan forward, but we need to understand, the commissioners need to understand what are the adjustments that's going to be made next year, because we know we have to make adjustments. And we've heard so much, social media, and newspaper, and chatter. We want to hear from you, the superintendent, the board members, or the staff. We just want to hear from you. So we have what you have to say. And we have listened to everyone else, because we have to listen, but now we want to listen to you, and we're going to work this out. So one of the goals is, the first goal is to hear about the plan, and then if we have any questions or comments, we'll do that. And we'll segue into the memorandum of agreement. I'm going to turn that over when we get to that point to Mr. Sauer to discuss that and some other things that he might want to discuss based on what we saw in the plan. The second goal is a path forward. We want to be collaborative partners. We want to be proactive in the budgeting of the school system, appropriations from the county. To do that, we need to understand your needs. Now, we don't expect you to tell us that today. Somebody has some work to do. As far as going forward, what does it look like? What does those appropriations that you're asking for, what's baked in that piece of the pie? And how can we close the gap? Because there's a gap in there on our end that we're not, meeting year after year after year. And we need to understand that. So as we budget for the county, we can adjust that if we can to close that gap. So we're going to do one thing at a time. First, we're going to deal with the here and now. Okay? Then when we complete that exercise, we'll segue into the second goal. And then we'll wrap this thing up. Because I know y'all have to go back to work somewhere. What's the old saying? I don't know where you're going, but you're going to leave here. So with that said, I'm going to ask the superintendent or the chair to appoint someone from your board or someone to make that presentation. And we're going to listen to the plan for the adjustment for 2023-2024.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Board of Education, administrators.
Just a minute. Mr. Curry, can you hear him? Let him check. You might have to come to the mic. Okay.
No problem. Okay, good morning, Board of Education, administrators, school staff, guests, Dr. Riddick, and the county commissioners. When developing the proposed budget, we always take into consideration the vision, the mission, and goal for our school district with student success at the forefront of each and every decision. The key to successful performance is the heart and the spirit that is infused into relationships among people, like we are here today. And also their efforts to serve all students and a shared responsibility of learning. Gates County Schools is doing wonderful things with our students and staff. I can list 8 right off the top of my head. We've got a clear and shared focused learning. We have high standards and expectations for all of our students and staff. We have effective school leadership. We manifest a coherent philosophy of learning for every student. We capitalize on the best ideas about what works in schools. We make a substantial commitment to professional development for faculty, and we have a supportive learning environment. And last but not least, we have a high development of family and community involvement, which is extremely important. The school district's budget is comprised of funds from the federal, state, and of course, the county. County contributions vary throughout North Carolina based on local tax dollars. The funding we receive from each of you is an intentional investment for our educational attainment in this county. Before you today is a plan for the school district budget. The plan describes our process for planning the budget for each school year and into the future. Now, do you have a copy of this right here? Each of you do?
No.
Okay, would you please hand that out for me, Ms. Jordan? I think they have enough.
I don't need one.
Have one for Mr. Sauer? Yes, I do. Okay. Full beans. Okay, if you flip the page, I'm not going to read everything word for word, but I will cover some things that I think are extremely important. This financial plan includes an introduction. So if you were just going to highlight and you turn to page 1 of the finance plan, this document will serve as a tool to assist in the development of Gates County Public Schools operating budget over the next 5 years. It also has a rationale for financial forecasting. It's a prediction. We really don't know what's going to happen, and I'll explain that a little bit later. But you know, that the financial forecasting, that's simply just a process of financial forecasting that allows the school system to examine and look at things in a big picture. Also, it has a maintenance of fund balance. In the plan, you will notice that in the future, any use of monies from fund balance will require not only approval from the Board of Education, but of the superintendent and the chief financial officer. We have board policy, and I've listed some board policies in here, and of course our policy dictates our process that we must abide by for our budget. And I have policy 8000 fiscal goals, and of course policy code 8100 budget planning and adoption. Also, there's something called level services budget. Each year is different based on our economy, as you well know. Just recently, the federal government increased the minimum wage. This has impacted our budget tremendously. In addition to the minimum wage increase, we have also had increases in retirement contributions and health care, and let's not forget those fuel costs. A level service budget does not reflect or take into account the following, and I just have 3 of these things. The development and implementation of new programs. I was at a Democratic Party convention, it might have been back in April, and I was asked, what kind of programs do you have in your CTE department, Dr. Williams? And I told them, and they said, well, are there other programs that you could provide that maybe would be so helpful? Because when I was young, I had those programs. And I said, of course we can do that, but it takes money. Doesn't matter how many students we have, we want to offer as many programs for our students to get them ready for high school and get them ready beyond so we can put them in the workforce, because we need the money in the workforce for our Social Security. So the level service does not take or reflect into taking the development into place of new programs, expanded programs or program initiatives, or even an unanticipated program need. But this budget does include inflationary increases in utility costs, which we found out, Mr. Sauer and I have been working together, we're talking $390,000. Inflationary increases in transportation costs, and of course adjustments in special education, and I'm talking like contract services, and Ms. Jordan knows all about how that works. But later in this plan, you will see each year we ask for varying amounts each year for the school, and then additional requests for special programs such as, example, like an extra assistant principal at the high school, or a second band instructor, or maybe my Navy program will expand and enlarge and I'm going to need another assistant to the Navy officer, NIS instructor. So our estimates for the 2025 to 2028, we consider all the items, but we know that the economy is ever changing and our best estimates may not be accurate. So when you look through this plan that you have before you, we consider salary we consider our revenue. Of course, our utilities, our transportation, enrollment, special education, and of course, decreases in level services estimated that could arise from such the following as increases in state aid through such grants that are earmarked funds specifically for low wealth and small schools. And we're counting on small schools to help us out, but the state has not come up with a budget yet. If the General Assembly approves this new voucher plan that they're talking about, and I'm sure you have heard about that, that right there is going to affect most school districts in the state of North Carolina. I do not know if that would affect us because we're not on the list from what Governor Cooper was telling a few superintendents, and I was in that conversation. The district will strategically examine programs, improvement opportunities, as well as new initiatives. If such are identified as decisions to pursue, then the district will decide to allocate dollars to those priorities. So in other words, when you're budgeting, you look at programs that are effective and you expand on those. And for programs that are not effective or students are not interested in, then you eliminate those programs. And that's just smart budgeting 101. But you know, level services can always change and there could be those decreases. Now, as far as the personnel piece, and tell me if I'm correct, Ms. Pittman, but what is it 80% of our budget's based on personnel? 80% or a little bit more is based on personnel. And each year, my HR director, Ms. Shante Jordan, completes a personnel planning budget with the assistance and with the assistance of the finance officer and input from every principal and every director in the school system. Of course, the principals get input from the teachers and their staff of what their needs are. Ms. Jordan will now come to the podium and share the details of the plan and how this process actually works.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Each year to develop our personnel recommendations or our plan or our budget recommendations, as Dr. Williams stated, there's a collaboration between myself, the finance director, the directors, and all the school administrators for their input to share the needs, concerns, and recommendations they have for each program of Gates County Schools. The first part of the planning process usually begins in January when we share or we distribute intent forms to our staff to get numbers and planning for what our projections will be for the next school year for personnel. We also look at enrollment and class size projections. That information comes from the principals. They share what current enrollment they have and then what projections are for especially our kindergarten or our new enrollments for the upcoming year. This information, the other information that's also taken into consideration is with class size, the number of teachers that we currently have and any planned retirements or resignations that may come along that may impact our class size and what personnel we'll need for each school. Personnel and instructional budget requests are also made to the school. That's a part of that plan and package that our principals and our directors share. They include what personnel requests they have or additional funding needs that they have based on enrollment, upgrades and things that are needed to their school, instructional supplies, and their personnel for the next year. This in conjunction with the school finance officer and the Board of Education, we look at and then create a plan or a recommendation for Gates County Schools for that year. We also use information like projected state allotments or any funding that we think we will have that will be able to support us in the needs that we have with personnel and instructional needs for our district. This information is also shared once the plan is, or a draft plan is created. We also share this information again with principals just to make sure we have covered all of the needs, and then we share this information with the Board of Education in a working session format to have more dialogue and conversation based on our current funds that we have and expenditures that are being requested for the next year.
Now, you can turn to the last 2 pages of the plan that we have got together right here. In addition to everything we've discussed, we've been very successful in finding grant funding for our projects, but specifically, these are capital projects. So we've done a really good job. On this page, you have a table, and I've got the grant allocation, the grant source, the matching funds required, and the grant allotment. And our plan, our grants obtained for these capital projects, right here, as I say, are outlined. This funding does not require a match from the county. This is a huge savings for our county and our citizens, because there's no taxes that has to be raised. We don't want to come over here and say we need this to have taxes raised. Working real hard this summer to put us a roof on at our high school. New energy efficient windows will be coming the year after that, as well as new construction for a band room, art room, ROTC, Navy room, and remodeling our science wing. Very important to keep our facilities up, and I think we do a really good job in that. So on the last page of the plan, I will continue to apply for grants and capital projects in a potential of around $10 million I can see coming our way with additional funds. So that money I can get for, of course, T.S. Cooper, my Buckland Elementary School, and our athletic community track that I am so, ever since I've been here, would like to see. So the potential total amount at no cost to citizens would be right around $26 million if you totaled everything all together of what we've done here in the school system. So with that being said, we appreciate you county commissioners for all that you do. We want to say thank you for your support and thank you for your interest in coming to our events. We got a big event this Friday. We got some little transitional moving up ceremonies events as well. So we most definitely would like to see you there in attendance. I know when you come in, people may not know you, some of our kids, but you know what? Everybody else sees you, and when everybody else sees you, they know that you care. And so the local support from cradle to career equals a strong Gates County just for now, but more importantly, in the future. So that's our finance plan, and that was goal number 1. Dr. Riddick said cover the plan.
Well, let us go back to goal number 1. We're not going to move to goal number 2 right now. In that finance plan, you see in front of you, commissioners, you see the pages aren't numbered, so I'm going to go to the titles of it. You see the ESSER funds, the other grant, expended 2022-2023. Everybody have that? Right there? Okay. We would like for the board to speak to or the superintendent or Ms. Jordan or whoever's on staff, Dr. Williams, to start at that page and share with us the increases and decreases that I'm looking at as far as funding for 22-23 ISER, and then the anticipated vacancies for 2023-2024, and end with the projected overall savings cost for 2023-2024. Okay? That way we're all on the same page. These are questions that I've been receiving from the commissioners that they want to see first this year to get us through 2023, 2024, get that done. And so I like what I see. We're not going to, I forgot to say, one of the things I did not want in this meeting are names of employees. We don't need to know that. We don't need to see that. That's your budget. These are your employees. They don't belong to us. But we did look at, and they're not on this handout. I'm just saying for people are listening. We're being videotaped, so I got to make sure I say certain things. So we don't have names on this plan. We don't need those. We just want to see the adjustments that are going to be made going forward to get us where we need to be as not only as a board of commissioners, but especially the Board of Education and the students and employees in the county. Okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll do my best, and I'll ask Board, Ms. Pittman, anybody else to have relevant information to chime in if I miss anything, all right?
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so I will, as Dr. Riddick suggested, start on the page with the ESSER funding 22-23. If you see there, we do have positions that have been funded by ESSER for the last two, and this going on the third year. And those positions, funding for those positions will expire. So our positions that funding will expire for at the end of the 22-23 school year are, we have one school counselor, a teacher assistant, instructional support staff, and then 3 school nurse positions that are funded through grants funds that will expire at the end of the 22-23 school year. If you see in the far right column, we've kind of identified which positions will be and which will not be filled moving forward in the 23-24 school year. So as you see, ESSER funding will not continue, but of those positions, we're planning to continue to fund 2 of those, which is one teacher assistant position and a school nurse position.
Before you move on, explain what ESSER is, in case someone doesn't know what that stands for.
Dr. Williams?
ESSER is the COVID funding that's come out with ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 pots of money. ESSER 2 expires and most of that in 24, and then ESSER 3 will expire in 2025. But they are COVID-related funds. We received multiple pots of money in the year. There were multiple now, had different acronyms, but they have basically all expired except the ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 that will continue over the next couple of years.
Thank you.
Okay. At the bottom of that page are the positions that will expire at the end of the 23-24 school year that are ESSER 3 funded positions, and that is, that's for K-5 teacher positions. And to the far right, will those positions need to be filled? Yes, very likely.
Okay.
Yes. Moving on to the next page, anticipated vacancies. Like I said, this information comes from information that we share with our staff in January to look at projections for the next year. And so anticipated vacancies based on that information are retirees. We have 3 retirements. We have others that are other teacher positions or employee positions from resignations. Our retirements are 2 K-5 teachers and 1 middle grade teacher. Resignations, we have a classified position, AIG coordinator, and 3 teaching positions. If we look to the far right, will these positions need to be filled? Here you'll see where there are no additions in this plan, but where there are reductions, we are planning to fill 4 of those positions, and 3 of those positions will not be filled as a part of our reduction plan for the 23-24 school year. Anticipated vacancies in administration and instructional support. There we have 4 positions. 1 school principal, media coordinator, school counselor, and a school nurse, and we do plan to fill all of those positions for the upcoming school year. And at the bottom of the page, anticipated vacancy, that's a classified position in the school nutrition program, and we do plan to fill that vacancy for the upcoming school year. Any questions about that page?
Let's stop right there for a minute and see if
Okay.
the commissioners have any questions about what she's just presented before we go on with the remainder of the plan.
So with the school nurses, you will not have 1 per school, so how are you going to rotate them?
Yes, and that was the process prior to ESSER funding. They did rotate school buildings.
Yeah, I knew you didn't have 1 originally.
That's right, yes, ma'am.
And we are assuming that you're taking into account the needs of each one of the schools.
Yes,
I heard that you said that you had conversation with principals and directors and staff and all of that. So, in other words, there was no isolated incidences where you did not speak with the affected supervisor, I call them supervisors, of the either the discipline or the school or the principals, I call them site-based managers. That's what they are, the site-based manager. That's an old term. That's an old term. She laughed because she knows what I'm talking about. Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Those conversations were held with the building principals and Mr. Jeremy Wright, who supervises our school nurses for the district through student services.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
That's Jeremy Wright.
Yes.
Question about the AIG coordinator, it's not a yes or a no.
That position is funded through grant funds. Well, not grant funds, we have AIG funding. So I don't think it's been determined yet whether that position will or how it will be filled. We will still continue to service the students, but how that position will be filled has not been determined yet because that'll be based on the funding that we receive.
Any more questions or comments before we allow Ms. Jordan to continue? Okay.
All right, the next page, this is summary of personnel for 2023-24. So at each school, our elementary schools, we have the first column number of teachers for the 23-24 school year. And this comes from the projections, again, in January, that we look at class sizes, our incoming enrollment with our kindergartners, and look at, based on state requirements for class size, how many teachers we need for each grade level. For the Buckland Elementary School, we're looking at 14, T.S. Cooper 12, and Gatesville 13 teachers. We're at, moving on down, that increases and decreases, 0 increases, but we have decreased 1 K-5 teacher at each elementary school in planning for the 23-24 school year. And then if you're the far column are the savings from that reduction, or those reductions. And at one elementary school, there's also a 0.5 part-time classified position that was decreased for the 23-24 school year. If we look at our secondary schools, the Central Middle School, we will remain current at the same number of teachers, the same as the high school. No increases for those, but there are some decreases for both of those. Well, decreases for the high school. There's 1 full-time teacher through attrition, 1 part-time custodian, and then some reductions in the athletic department. And the savings are there again in the far right column. And that's a total based on the reductions. You see there in the green, that's the total reductions that's the total savings based on reductions for the 23-24 school year.
Any questions on this page? Okay, the final page.
Okay. I will share the bottom, the table at the bottom. There are some increases, decreases there, but total savings from the reductions there are at the far right column. I do want to bring note to that. For total savings in the reductions based on our planning for the 23-24 school year, there at the bottom.
We explain classified, all classified. What groups fall into this?
Non-certified employees. And that's our teacher assistants, that's our clerical staff at the schools, clerical staff at central office, maintenance staff, child nutrition, all non-certified staff.
Certified staff.
And so one of the reductions there was the hours for all non-certified staff. Teacher assistants are non-certified staff, but there was no reduction for teacher assistants because that's their working hours are already 37.5 hours per week. So they will remain the same. And that included approximately 39 employees.
Any more questions or comments about the first part of our presentation? I'm grateful that you're here because we heard so many different scenarios and myths, and we just wanted to hear it from the staff. I'm looking at Mr. Felton, he's the chair. we wanted to understand from what we've been hearing and reading or whatever. We just wanted to see it, and this is a good visual that that Dr. Williams has put together for us, so we can understand what you understand. You've seen this, and do you have any comments about the journey that you're on as far as trying to get to the next year before we segue into other presentation?
And Dr. Riddick, before Dr. Williams comes, if I can say, just to add to, 'cause I know you alluded to the things that you've been hearing and things that, information that's been shared, but all these reductions are taking place without any employees losing their jobs. So everyone will remain employed and also being able to consider these reductions to our budget. So I did want to just put that out there to add to what you have been hearing. Any other questions?
And I'm going to give the board, each one of y'all can say something now, let the superintendent, he's up at the podium, but, this is a dialogue, it's not a monologue. I'm impressed with it. Let me say this, it's not an easy fix for any budget. We're going through some of the same challenges with the county budget and other counties and other school systems. It's not lost on us, the decision-making process you have to go through. So we appreciate you tackling this the best way that you can for your school system and your employees who are citizens of the county. We have to look out for the citizens, especially taxes and things of that nature. So it's not lost on us, the journey that you've been on and will continue to be on to get this right. I just wanted to say that.
And it's nice for people not losing their job, but these 39 employees whose hours are cut
Right.
is, what is that, like 6 point something of their salary?
That's their salary reduction,
I was
yeah.
just kind of doing the math in my head.
Right.
And that's very difficult, and that's less than a lot.
So that's 12%.
Yes, and we do have that, but it was,
Oh, I know, sometimes it's the lesser of two evils.
yes, it was the lesser of two evils, but it was very honest.
Ms. Hoffler, that total amount for the reduction from 40 hours to 37 and a half, I don't know if Ms. Jordan said this, that comes to the amount of about $133,000, if I'm correct, board, is that right? But something else I wanted to share, if you turn to the page that Ms. Jordan left you on over to the table that's got Gates County Schools, and it's got the requested allocation, the general fund, and it's this page right here I'm showing you.
That's the page I want you to hold off on.
Okay.
You'll be able to come back. I'm doing one thing at a time.
Oh, okay. All right. My bad. All right.
You're bad.
Yeah.
We're going to get to that page. Yeah, that's goal too. We're just trying to get to 23, 24 right now. We seated that last page, that allocation page.
I'd like to say something. I receive a lot of phone calls, personal visits. As far as the 39 employees, that has taken a drastic toll on the morale in the school system. And just me as a board member, but I have to go along with what the board decides. I don't feel like that is the perfect solution. I think there's something else out there that needs to be looked at. That's just me.
Right.
And I do have to go along with the board. And I am thankful for what the commissioners do. Very appreciative of that. We have an excellent team of two boards.
I appreciate your position and what you just said. We all feel it when we have to do the tough work of serving on these elected boards. And most of the time, I have found that the solution that suits everyone doesn't exist. It just doesn't exist. I look at it as a pie. You've got one pie. And you got all this stuff baked in that pie. And when you have a shortfall or not enough resources for the needs of whatever entity you're serving on, you have to make those tough decisions. And it's a balancing act. You try to do no harm, but in the process, someone's going to be harmed. And I say that to say this, when I said before, it's not lost on us the journey you are on. But that's the journey you walk when you sit on elected boards and have to make those tough decisions to move forward, to correct, and that's what we're trying to get to today, to ensure this doesn't happen again. Whatever, the matter doesn't come up the same way. But you're going to face these decisions as board members every year. You're not funded, no one is funded at a level that we can meet all the needs of our citizens. No one. And those mechanisms are put in place years before if you are funded that way. And we're going to talk about that with that page that he showed me. That's one of the things I wanted to see. He put it in there. We're going to get to that because there's a path forward. But the path forward takes time. It's not a sprint. You got to do one thing at a time. You got to solve 2023, 2024 first. Because that's what's in front of you right now. You've got to tackle what's in front of you. And I'm not saying this to discount the compassion and empathy you have for the workers, for your employees. We all have it. But decisions have to be made to move forward in a way that you don't have to revisit that again. But there are driving forces, there are external driving forces that are going to force you again to make another decision next year about something else. So it's a journey that we all on as elected officials, and it's part of the job that we have that none of us like. But we have to do it because we ran for the seat. And we ran for the seat to serve the citizens of this county the best we can with what we had, the resources we had. So as I look at the Board of Education, I see it. I'm looking at y'all this morning. I see it. And I know the other commissioners see it. So I just wanted to say that, Mr. Byron, about your phone calls and how you feel. I would think less of any of you if you didn't have an emotion. I would say, what the world's wrong with you people? So I know you feel it. I can see it. I feel it. And we'll get through this.
I do have one more question. So going back, we're talking about 39. How did we decide what 39 employees or the non-classified? Is this upper management or is this just a certain?
It's actually at-will employees who don't have a contract with the school system.
It would be,
Secretaries, some of the maintenance department, data operators, things like that. They're really crucial employees to the system.
Yep.
And I'm just asking for any help in that direction. That would be greatly appreciated. I do see that morale there, and if you get Facebook, you'll notice that a lot of people have really downsized the Board of Education as well as the commissions too. But we did have one citizen who came before the board who did put something on Facebook negative about the board and apologized to us last night for it, which I thought was very admirable of that person to do that.
Well, we can't make decisions based on Facebook. We have to make some tough decisions.
I do hear what you're saying about morale, though. When morale is up, also, staff is willing to do more. You're going to have them more active, more proactive. When you have morale down, they're going to do less. They're going to be discouraged. They're going to be defeated. You're going to end up needing more help because morale is down, which in the end can be a bigger issue.
and we've also had people who are near retirement, and they are especially concerned with this cut with the classified people.
Yeah.
That would be an increase.
I mean, because essentially a 6% decrease in salary per year could have someone making now less than they were during a time of inflation than they were hired at. And that's discouraging. I can understand, yeah.
I have a question of clarification for the summary of personnel. The number of teachers increase and decrease. I'm looking at Gates County High School. It specified art teacher and also specified custodian. Athletics, what is that exactly? What position or is that?
Athletics would be Coach Creedy, Matthew Biggie.
We don't need names.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No names.
Okay. It would be the athletic director for our system, and also the assistant athletic director.
Okay.
This
So
is
it's
2
actually-
months. It says
Cutting their months of employment.
going from 12 month to a 10-month or,
It's overall cut
Okay.
2 months of employment for the head football coach and the athletic director.
And the art teacher, we're going to utilize the art teacher that is at one school to travel to the high school.
Okay.
So there will be art taught.
Right.
Yeah, thank you.
Any more questions about the plan that was just described to us before we move into the plan to assist? That's the next step for next year. And again, we understand what you're doing, we understand the journey, we understand the angst of the citizens. We feel it too, you know. You're not alone on Facebook. You got plenty company. But that's why we sit behind this desk.
You know, there's some employees, Mr. Craddock, that are classified that were not cut, am I right, Mr. Jordan, like the bus drivers or the music centers, is that correct?
Right, they were already staff that were below 30 that will have.
That's why I say they didn't work a full, I mean, they have.
And as far as, I'm sorry, was you gonna say anything?
No, but like you were saying about community center, the community center full-time hours were not cut because they are funded through county. And so those hours are not cut. And daycare, same.
And with that salary increase, especially daycare was a very significant situation because when they mandated the pay raises for the lowest paid people and they received those, then a new person walking in who was first day at work was making more or equal to what a 5 or 6 year employee was making. So we not only had to take care of those people, but we had to bump those salaries up of people who had been there long term, so that they would have, you know, they have seniority, they've been there, they have the experience. It wasn't fair for them to be making the same amount of money.
right, and it's not,
And
and I'm not bickering back and
Absolutely.
forth or anything, but it's not fair to cut people 2.5 hours either,
I concur.
you know?
But you know, the problem is, who are we gonna decide, you know, and one of my buddies that I feel comfortable talking to is in one of the departments, and we were in the Dollar General not too long ago, and we were discussing this cut. And I said to him, I said, you know, the only thing I know to do is for you to get your department together and you to decide which person you want to lose so the rest of your folks can have their 40-hour weeks back. And, I mean, we were talking, we weren't fussing or arguing anything, but you know, that's almost what it boils down to. You're gonna have to lose someone to get their salary back up. So rather than a decrease in salary, this person's out the door. Which is better, I don't know. But I concur with you, I don't think it's fair. And believe me, the ears have burned, just as Mr. Beverly has said, the ears have burned.
You know, you asked about the athletics piece, I believe that was like $13,000 when we were talking about, you know, coaching. But, you know, Mr. Byron, just extending on what he said, we have an employee who's been there for 30 years as a classified staff and has really put in the time, dedication, the service as an employee. And then all of a sudden, she, right here, 19 months, and she plans to retire. And how's that feel? You know, and you know, Dr. Reddick's right. You know, when you sit in these positions, and, you know, it's a hard position, it's an elected official position. That makes you feel good when you go home. You make, you know, those decisions of when you get the telephone call. So he got a phone call. I was face to face with the employee. And, you know, so we will have a meeting to discuss all these things.
We are going to have a meeting. We'll get to that. Then I'm trying to get the, you know, they succeed here. Now we're going to move to the We're going to move the meeting to look at the objective of reviewing and approving the allocation of capital funds and the conversion of those funds to operating funds per the memorandum of agreement prepared by the county manager and the school superintendent and required adopted resolution under statute 115C-433 is titled Amendments to the Budget Resolution. And I'm going to call on the county manager. If you look in your packets from last week, I'm talking to the commissioners, that amendment is in there, but he has a handout for you. We prepared it for this meeting, so everyone would have a copy of what we're getting ready to discuss and approve. Well, he's got a copy. So this is not the first time that the board has seen this. The Board of Commissioners, it was in their packet last week, and we made the decision to call this joint meeting. Pay attention. We made a decision at our budget proposal last week to have this meeting and to get this done.
Well, to kick this off, I'd like to just share a couple of thoughts. In a week, I'll be here 120 days, and I've been trying to very quickly gain an appreciation for Gates County history and the situations that we're dealing with. And as a newcomer, as an outsider, as a fresh set of eyes, this is commendable. This is refreshing to see the two boards working together. Unfortunately, this is not par for the course in a lot of local communities where there's just such friction and animus, and to have everybody together sharing information is truly remarkable. And because if you don't have this kind of cohesiveness, the folks that come out ahead are not the students, it's the attorneys who get engaged to do battles. So I really am humbled and pleased to be here to offer some thoughts. In the last, I'll say, 45 days, I've had two people in my ear on this topic. One is Dr. Williams, your superintendent. The other has been Dr. Riddick, our board chair. And both have come at this from very different perspectives, but with the goal of trying to find some sort of solution. Dr. Riddick has been Dr. Williams, has been very transparent in that to help me have a foundation of understanding and historical perspective. He was quick to share the last two audited financial statements for the school system. For FY21, that's the year that ended June 30 of 21, now 2 years ago, the school system's general fund closed out the budget year with a total fund balance of $1,247,000. A year later, fiscal 22, that ended just 12 months ago, the fund balance closed out at $945,000. And then as the new school year started, the new fiscal year started, the Board of Education adopted its budget resolution needing to appropriate $692,000 of the $945,000 that you had available to work with, leaving a projected amount for this fiscal year we're about to end of just roughly $250,000. And so I think it's apparent that things are tight. You need to have a balance in your fund reserves so that you have operating cash to pay bills, to make payroll. And it's fairly clear that something needs to be adjusted as we go forward. In my work with the Board of Commissioners, we've done a similar review of the county's fund balance and audited statements for the last couple of fiscal years, and they also brought back the financial advising team that worked with the county many years ago when they took on some capital projects, like the new social services building, the new central middle school. And I think the good news for Gates County, for both elected boards and for the citizens, is that the debt service is being paid off, it's being retired, and in less than 36 months, our long-term debt will be zeroed out. And again, I am extremely impressed with the work of the school system and the superintendent to bring in the outside capital funds that are allowing improvements and renovations without a local match, without incurring additional debt. And one of the areas that Dr. Williams and I have talked about is there is a fund prescribed by the statutes called the School Capital Reserve Fund, which is the recipient of restricted sales tax monies. In North Carolina, we have various sales tax structures that are assembled. There's one called Article 39. That is a 1% statewide sales tax that's distributed, is collected centrally, distributed per capita to all the counties. Then we have several half-cent sales taxes. And the first two that come to mind are Article 40 and 42. With Article 40, 30% of the receipts have to go toward school capital or debt service. With Article 42, it's 60% that has to go to the school capital or debt service. And that's the way those dollars have been programmed year after year to pay down the debt obligations. And there's typically, in a strong economy, a greater amount, trying to find the right word, than the monies that are required to pay the debt. And those monies accumulate in the School Capital Reserve Fund. There is another article, number 44, that was added less than 10 years ago that provides a little bit additional flexibility. The money can go toward school debt service, school capital outlay, community colleges, and also for economic development projects that the county may entertain. For the county's audit that was finished June 30, 22, the School Capital Reserve showed a balance of just over $1.9 million. And part of those funds are being programmed and budgeted for next year to pay the next round of debt service. But we believe when we close out this fiscal year, 2023, that fund will grow just a tad to about $2,064,000, I think is our projection. And there are mechanisms available to counties, to boards of education, whereby capital outlay monies can be transferred, transitioned, repurposed for operating expenses. And I want to be very mindful that the Board of Education had requested new current expense dollars over and above the current year appropriation, which is $2.9 million and some change. And that figure was about $887,000, or the equivalent of about a 9-cent tax increase, which the board has not yet said yes or no, but the recommendation I brought to the board was to try to avoid a tax increase. But the use of the capital reserve, converting capital outlay to operating, is detailed and prescribed in the general statutes, and there's a copy of that included on the memorandum of agreement, which is a draft, which has been worked on by the superintendent and myself. But the last page is the actual detail for the transfer of those funds. And for the benefit of the listening audience, I'll share that and this is North Carolina Statute 115C-33, subparagraph D, the Board of Education may amend the budget to transfer money to or from capital outlay to or from any other fund with the approval of the Board of County Commissioners to meet emergencies, unforeseen and unforeseeable at the time the budget resolution was adopted. Well, the Board of Education is working now on a budget resolution that was adopted a year ago. And again, any number of factors and forces have been at work, but we are where we are at this moment. In order to enact this change, and it states in the statute, when such an emergency arises, the Board of Education may adopt a resolution requesting approval from the Board of Commissioners for the transfer of a specified amount of money to or from the Capital Outlay Fund or some other fund. The resolution shall state the nature of the emergency, why the emergency was not foreseen and was not foreseeable when the budget resolution was adopted, what specific objects of expenditure will be added or increased as a result of the transfer, and what objects or expenditures will be eliminated or reduced as a result of the transfer. And I think through the conversation this morning and the presentation of the financial plan, we now see a 5-year planning effort, and the next 12 months detailed in adjustments that the Board of Education has laid out to make. So I think we've got the foundational information for that resolution, if that's where the two governing bodies desire to go. Again, this is a draft memorandum of agreement with the hope that there's going to be some relief coming from the state of North Carolina when the General Assembly adopts its new 2-year biennium budget, based on reports that I'll say we, Dr. Williams, has received from some of our legislative leaders, that the funding for small schools may be significantly increased next year, which will go for both of the 2 biennium years, and provide a relief valve to hopefully take the pressure off of some of these matters. Well, when this discussion evolved and came to light, I shared this information with the Board of Commissioners, have been discussing it with Dr. Williams, and the draft agreement, memorandum of agreement, speaks to the fact that the purpose of this transfer is to be used to replenish the fund balances for the school's general fund, and to be used at the discretion of the Board of Education. So I've tried to tie the specifics together as we track the performance of the fund balance over the last couple of fiscal years, and resulting in a very limited fund balance presently, and to try to use this potential transfer as a way to replenish, reinforce, and provide some breathing room as you plan for the new school year and hopefully the new budget year with the state. And at the advice of Dr. Riddick, and we've shared this and really only discussed it briefly with the commissioners, the intent is to have a reversion provision, in that if the state General Assembly is so generous in its small school appropriations that it provides funding that will eliminate the situation that we're facing locally, that these funds would only be necessary on a temporary basis and be reverted back to the county. But I guess I'd be remiss if I didn't say to the county commissioners, it's as simple as when you loan $500 to your brother-in-law. If you aren't ready to do without, don't offer it up. And I think, and I'm not trying to be coy, I'm just trying to recognize that this is a serious situation. There are cool heads around the table, and whatever amount is put up for discussion, and the number that is used in this draft agreement, the 600,000, was a number that just late yesterday, I asked Dr. Riddick for some guidance, and she said, "We'll put this number in there and we'll just talk about that and see if there's any cohesion between the two boards on this." But I think whatever number goes into this agreement has to be understood that it's going for the purpose of serving the public schools, serving the situation at hand, and if the state comes through and the money can come back, that's great, but I'd hate to see us go to battle over that. But that's always a possibility in the dynamics that we see in the state. And again, I probably did a little more arm twisting on this document with Dr. Riddick than he did, or Dr. Williams, than he did on me, but the last section, Section 8, is suggested and crafted so that there is a commitment of cool-headed, hardworking elected officials to say, we're not going to fight about this and not institute the funding dispute provisions that are available in the law for at least a period of 3 years, to say, look, we've put a plan forth, everyone has nodded and agreed, this is money that's been made available, and it would just be a shame to put a figure like $600,000 out there and in less than 24 months spend half that much again in legal fees between the two parties. So I'm politely asking and suggesting that there be a commitment that we try to avoid that. I think it'd be a disservice to the taxpayers and the citizens to get into that kind of squabble, and I don't sense we're going to have that, but this is commendable that the two boards are doing this, and we're fortunate because folks long before I arrived on the scene had been looking after the public treasury. There's money available in this fund, not a lot, because the state wants us to maintain funds because things will come up in the future where monies might have to be borrowed, emergencies might occur, and the schools need emergency help for a boiler that's gone out or a series of HVAC systems that have crashed due to a lightning strike. It could be any number of things. So it's prudent to maintain funds in the balance, but I believe you've got adequate reserve to try to work through a difficult temporary situation. And I guess I'll be quiet. And
Also, don't you want to mention this is a one-time deal for at least 3 years for the recurring?
that was the directive I felt that I have heard from the Board of Commissioners, and when the two boards were together a few weeks ago at the elementary school, I felt the communication came fairly clearly from the board chair that where she was speaking from the five commissioners, I think that's what she specifically said and implied, and that's been that's why I use the word non-recurring in one time in so many repetitive ways in this. But yes, that's the communication that I think we're attempting to bring to the process.
I would just like to add that, yes, I've been in talks with superintendent and county manager and commissioners on occasion, and especially when we met with you a month ago or so. we're here to help. We just need to do it in a way that's legal, because it's statute. We can't just willy-nilly do it. And as Mr. Sauer and Mr. Robinson, he's our finance director now. I'm so happy he's here. When they asked me to come down yesterday, I came down to the office. I called the office. I feel like I got an office here, but anyway. And we were talking about the amount and what we could do, what we what does the resolution dictate. And I had seen it years ago and forgot about it. That's not my job. Mr. Sauer brought it out yesterday, all highlighted and everything, just like you got. I said, oh, okay, you need to do that too. But we are here to help. And we understand that things come up, but I'm still in the same position I was when I visited your house. We don't want to see this again. We expect that the Board of Education to do their due diligence and ensure that going forward, that you look at your budget, your ADM, the ISA funds, COVID funds, whatever you want to call it, all the funds that come in. And that's why I impressed upon every commissioner at this table to leave the day-to-day alone. We don't know your budget. You know what we appropriate, you know what you ask for. We're going to get to that in a minute. But and I'm going to say this again because I really want people to understand. Unless you sit in the seats you were sitting in, you don't understand. Unless you sit in the seats we sit in, you don't understand. You serve all the school system, all those little kids, big kids, grown kids think they're grown. And then you have the employees that work very hard, every last one of them. But when you have a situation like this, that's when your leadership skills come out. Everybody can serve and everything's fine, got plenty of money, it's the sun shining every day. It's those times when your choir member is one of the persons, maybe, I'm just saying as an example, comes to you and says, you know, I might lose my job. That's when you look at personnel instead of persons. Does that make sense? All of them are essential. There are no such things as a non-essential person. I told them last Wednesday night that nobody missed the garbage man until the garbage not picked up. Yep. They're invisible, but they do the essential work all day. And usually they're the least paid, but it's essential what they do. We understand that. We feel you. We see you. We're going through some of the similar things. All positions are essential. So before we get into the path forward with the appropriations that we've been doing for 7 years, nobody understood, at least I didn't, but now I do. We need to settle on this. You heard about the resolution. I think that's something new that the commissioners have in your packet now. You didn't have that before. You didn't see that last week. That's new. It's by statute, has to be in there. It has to be crafted by the Board of Education, submitted to us. So let the board hear from the Board of Education your questions, your comments about this agreement, so that when we leave here today, we got a path forward going somewhere. And I'm praying, I hope we can go forward, put this thing, get the amount, the superintendent or whoever's going to draft the resolution done, get that packet together so we can allocate these funds before the end of the year, before June 30th. We're not going to wait for the state. I said that last week at the board meeting. There's no need to wait for the state. This does not impact the citizens as far as taxes going up. It does not impact our general fund as far as what we're trying to do with our budget tomorrow. We're going to have a work session tomorrow. So, just like we talked about 5 minutes ago, the balancing act, that's where we are. Mr. Felton, you looking thought, you're thinking.
I was absolutely thrilled to hear you say, if you hadn't sat in that seat, you don't have ideas. I'm sure it's true for us and for each of us, and it's certainly true for you. This has done a very dramatic contribution to all of us. We've been forced to make decisions based on what we had, not what we hope to get. So that causes us to look like we don't know what we're doing because we don't know what we're working with. it's like when you go fishing, you don't know how much meal to buy till you get hungry. And that's where we've been on trying to resolve this. This resolution that y'all, the solution that y'all have come up with is amazing. And the collaboration between the two boards has been unheard of in the time that I've been here. And I appreciate you and Mr. Sauer for being the influence that made this happen. And certainly, Dr. Williams has made a whole lot happen. And he he's been quite a strong backbone for Gates County Schools. When he brought in, he came with a vision, he's kept his vision. And he spent a lot of time out of the district. And it's been questioned even by your board. But as we sit here today, we say that the time was very well spent doing everything all of us. So we appreciate this. We're going to have a meeting to figure out how we're going to best do it. But I promise you, for each of us, that we're not going to squander it. And we don't really can have another meeting like this. We understand your position on tax increases because each of us pay taxes and none of us like an increase. So we very much understand your positions on that and appreciate the work you're doing to hold taxes and to also look after the school system. Because without the school system, we don't stand a chance of growing against Canada. We've got to educate our children well and prepare them for the future. And something like very well prepared. We're doing that. So we appreciate your help very much, and we're committed to doing exactly what you say with the resolution.
Okay. Mr. Riddick, you haven't said anything, and Ms. Jaime Becker? I'm not gonna let you get away with not saying anything. Ask the board, I asked everybody. Nobody leaves this dais behind this desk without saying something. So,
well, anyway, good morning, all you all. It's a pleasure to be able to meet with you all and us to work together collaboratively. I just say that, Maxwell says this, and I realize his books, is that sometimes you win, sometimes you learn. And I think the board has learned a lot from this situation. I know we know how we got there, we know where we are, and we thank you all for helping get us out. I think we got a good plan. We'll go back to where we were. We'll go forward. So I'm really excited about continuing learning and working with this great board and working with this great commissioners that we have. And I like what Mr. Sauer said. I mean, I really love, we can work together, and I hope we can spread it not only in this room, but throughout the whole community. I mean, that's what we need. Gates County, she called me, y'all know the preacher, right?
You don't get more money.
look, I do talk.
We might cut it if you talk too long.
Line between the sermon and the justice situation.
All the bad stuff been said about us. But you know one thing? We got a chance to show Gates County, not only Gates County, but Northeast and North Carolina, and also North Carolina. And really, you don't despise small things, right? We're at a great start. We continue to work together and continually think together and discuss things in a way and look at the big picture, not just on be quiet and not focus just on the tree. Focus on the tree, right? We can't get the forest because the tree is a part of the forest. So I'm very happy to be here with you all today. I'm happy to be with my colleagues. I'm excited.
Amen. Amen. Ms. Jaime Becker. Good morning.
I guess my question, we all kind of feel the same way about, we don't want to send anybody home. We don't want to cut people's hours. We are in a pickle. And I know we are all appreciative of being here with you guys today and the steps that are being taken to help us resolve the situation. But I guess my question is, I know you guys as a board, and I've heard things in the community, and I've had people reach out, and have concerns about all of our essential workers. I don't want to call them classified, they are essential. Getting their hours cut, and we have, it's that week, or we get some people home, like, what's the lesser of two evils? This relief that's gonna help us is this, with it being one time, like, in the future, if we're able to put those people back at our 40 hours, how are you guys gonna help us to cover insurance and cover retirement? Is this something that's going to just be this flat rate, and you expect us to work with only the $600,000 because it's only one time recurring? Or is there going to be further conversation so we can manage and maintain those positions in the future with our yearly county money coming into the school system? Am I making that make sense?
It's very clear.
That's my
Yeah.
question.
And that's why I'm waiting to get to the second goal, to allocate. We've been thinking very deeply,
Right.
I have been in conversation, and I've shared it with some of the commissioners, because we can't meet, have people watching. If we, three of us together, that's a meeting, can't do that. So I've leaned on, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? But I can get up with them. They all have lives. But one of the things going forward that was deep in my heart, and I talked to Mr. Sauer and I talked to the superintendent about, is going forward, how do we impact positively and plan for closing that gap of appropriation if appropriation given. That's what I'm waiting to do that. Once we get all of this done, then we're going to talk about that, because this is not the end. When I come with a solution, I come with a deep solution, because if we don't do something, we'll be right back here again. It may not be what happened this time, it can be something else. And we need to sit as a board again, and we're going to, but I'm going to explain that later, but that's a good question. You almost stole my thunder. I can't have that now. You look at my notes. But yeah, we're going to talk about that in just a few minutes, but we want to know a consensus of moving forward with this memorandum of agreement. If we're in agreement, then Mr. Sauer, the superintendent who has to do the resolution, get it approved through their board, bring it back, attach it, I'm asking, attach it to this, to the agreement, and we sign off on it. Is that how you envision that?
That could work, or since both boards are in a voting session, if both boards were to vote to approve the memorandum of agreement today, with the understanding that nothing happens until that resolution crafted by the schools is first approved by the Board of Education and then by the county commissioners, because the agreement simply allows for the movement of the money from the school capital reserve into the school capital fund, and then that resolution is what will then convert it from capital into operating that will, so if you were inclined, you could do one today and then one at a subsequent date as soon as the other resolution is done, and that way you could mark today as saying, this was accomplished and checked off your list. We've got one more step to take, and then our goal, again, this is just a draft, but our goal was to try to have a check in your hands by June 15th, so.
Not really, I have a few questions. You were moving up to Mr. Simon. That capital school fund, is that any of that money reoccurring, putting in there? I understand 30% of the 1% goes into that.
It's 30% of the 0.5% that's called Article 42, and 60% of the 0.5% that is called Article, one's 40, one's 42. And then we have this other category called Article 44 that's a little bit broader, that can be used for school capital, community colleges, and economic development. And that's where the Board of Commissioners has a little bit more flexibility if there were to be a project or an industrial park or a shell building that they were working on, or maybe a workforce training program to reinstitute bricklaying, welding, and carpentry in the school system if you don't have. I mean, there could be any number of ways to utilize that, but as the economy is sustained and hopefully grows, that fund will receive additional receipts as long as we don't tie it up with debt long-term. And at the strong suggestion of Mr. Robertson, our new finance director, he's recommending that that the county and hopefully the superintendent have a conversation with both of our auditing teams to have them take a look back historically and just try to verify that everything that's supposed to be in that fund has been clearly accounted for. Again, when your history is such that you have turnover in some of your managerial positions, things can fall through the cracks. And I think we owe it to both boards just to try to make sure we're accounting for every dollar that's supposed to be there and make sure we've got it straight. Because that gives you just more confidence, one, and more flexibility for things in the future. So we'd like to sort of make that as a staff recommendation to be considered, and I think it would be very timely to speak with our auditors when they're on the
Few more
floor.
questions. So not only it will accumulate something other than interest income.
Correct.
Correct. Okay, and I really would like to thank you for looking at it and taking the recognition of recognizing Dr. Williams for saving the county from long-term debt, because that has been a significant savings to the county. And you gave us that proposal and you gave us the information about the capital outlay. If this board was to motion to make a resolution to transfer some of that money to operating expenses, is that something that we as a board approve, that the commissioners would consider it? That's that question. And then the last question I have on the memorandum of agreement, is there any way that we don't have to give the $600,000, all of it back, or part of it back? Our special needs students department is growing tremendously in the county. And last night I asked to make sure that we have all state dollars, all federal dollars, all grant money, all local money, to make sure that they're fully utilized to whatever's allotted to them. Okay, but special needs situations, the federal does not adequately fund the special needs department adequately. I was just wondering if we could keep a portion of it. I'm asking, it's a big,
We're able to do this because we have been good stewards.
right.
And, we never know when a catastrophic event will occur that we have to have these funds. So I don't think that's a question we need to ask right now. We need to worry about this budget that's in front of us, my personal opinion. And I think we need to, both boards need to reexamine everything, all our allotments of money, to make sure that we're just not doing, they got this much this year, we'll give them the same amount next year, or increasing. Why are you increasing? Why is that rationale? I think we need to ask some hard questions, not only about all we do, but, everything you were involved with at schools.
And I concur with exactly what you're saying, because we were so thankful that you funded the band director, what you funded him for 1 year. That was something that we did not have the money for. And so that was one of the things that got us where we are. The other thing is, 10 years ago, we needed 3 fifth-grade teachers. And because in our 5th grade, I don't know that all of you know, but in the 5th grade, there are 3 EOGs. So if you only have 2 teachers in the 5th grade, that means that one teacher is going to have to teach 2 very diverse courses, math, ELA, science. So you've got to, and I was a principal then, and I know how much that is needed in the 5th grade, especially when you have 22 students in class, if you look at some of these numbers. But anyway, we made that mistake of knowing that we need, well, no, I didn't make it because I wasn't.
Don't run for cover night.
Well, Ms. Ryan, and all in attendance here, that's the second part I'm trying to get to.
Okay, I'll be quiet.
To Mr. Byron's question, those are the things I baked into my presentation to share with you exactly what you're saying, trying to get there from here, because if we keep doing the same thing, we get the same results. We can't do that. And that's
And recurring.
that's on both sides of the aisle, this table and that table. So that's the second part that I was sharing with Mr. Robinson and Mr. Sauer yesterday when I was in the office. I got a virtual office down here, but anyway. And I shared it with the superintendent to get a feel for the temperature. I want to test the temperature. Is there, and he said, yes, we need to have that conversation. So those questions, good questions. I'm glad the comments. You're spot on, every last one of you. And we appreciate this meeting so much because already it's been fruitful. It's been impactful. And we're going to make it more impactful if you ever let me get to the second part. So let me stop. You have a question?
Well, this is a one-time thing. Is 600,000 enough? I'm asking. That's what I'm asking. How did we end up at this number?
I just threw it out there. I'm serious. I just pulled it out.
I'm just wondering.
That's for the two boards to decide.
That's between the two boards to decide. If 600,000 is enough, they can't have it all.
How much?
Don't you dare try to get it all. We cannot deplete. We come sorry.
I agree with you.
Can I make a comment?
1.9.
Ms. Jordan, if you would.
They requested.
What are we at as far as
It was
when people
887.
out on the street and what was said about the shortfall? Can you explain that on this piece right here? Maybe if you use this, you can explain, because you do a real good job articulating that about.
No, let her do it.
So, where am I beginning here?
Mr. Craddock said, what do you actually need?
What is I see what you tried to say with the cuts.
What do you actually need? That's his question.
What do you actually need? Not saying throwing this out the window.
Right.
But-
Fund balance appropriation for 23-24 school year is $887,520.
$887,000.
8 what now?
$887,520.
So,
Did I answer your question?
yes.
Okay. And your suggestion,
And
Mr.
that,
Pratt?
it's, some of that being used for recurring things.
We're not, that's their operating, it's their operating fund. That's what we're doing. We're changing, we're giving it not giving it, we're allocating it to the school board to convert to operating fund. That's what we're doing. But that's one time. Because we can't come back and ask for whatever this number is, Leslie, don't you come.
So, in essence, if we funded you this money, in essence, you wouldn't have to do any of this cut, or you would have to do this cut plus?
Okay. I think it's a question.
Good question.
And that's what Ms. Ron was just asking about as well. That's without any reductions, that would be the fund balance appropriation. Recommended budget, if we look at the cuts that we are recommending, then the fund balance appropriate, we would be, let me get this right. The ending, we would be to the good $469,000 with the reductions that we are looking at for the upcoming school year. So
Okay.
fund balance appropriated after reductions would be $59,520.
If we had 800.
Right.
If we had $887,520.
We just want to have 59 in the SC.
So, if
May I
we,
say something?
yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So if we fund you this full amount that you're asking for, and we do some of these cuts, go ahead and do some of these cuts, not all of them, I'm just asking, this would give us a whole fiscal year to figure out what we need to do for next year.
Hence the finance plan.
Correct.
It would be a whole year for you to figure out.
Yeah.
What? Go ahead.
Yes, that is correct. But if we in turn get the money from the state that we hope we are getting, we are having to give you back all the money you gave us. So we're not ahead anything.
Correct.
Right.
Well,
We can,
So that's what I would.
We can't do that.
we cannot do
We
that.
can't do that.
no.
But is it school money? I guess that's what
No.
I don't understand, it's capital outlay for the school. And you have those things that say you can convert it to operating expenses. I don't mean to be ugly, please don't
No,
think
no,
I'm
no.
like the hand that's feeding us tonight. But I have a difficult time, you know, I will tell you, we didn't even know you had that money, or at least I didn't know. And it's been well kept secret. Nobody can see it all. I'm saying, if school capital, if that money is set aside to be used for school capital, unless that item 44 that has some differentiation in there,
Fund
then,
for economic.
yeah, I don't want to give it back. I guess-
Capital, maybe I'm being simplistic, I'm looking at my finance director back there, but capital outlay funds are one-time funds, they're not recurring funds. That's not, see, salaries are recurring funds, so if we give you this money and you convert it, see, we're giving, appropriating, capital outlay funds. Just stop right there. That's non-recurring. All day long, it's non-recurring. Okay, but in this statute and these amendments states that with the Board of Commissioners approval, we can allocate the capital outlay funds and you can transfer it to operating funds. Okay, once you do that, that's recurring. We cannot recur $887,520, because then you baked it into your budget. Am I right, William?
But that's not what I'm saying, I don't think.
And I think what you're saying is that once you convert it, y'all have to help you out in your operating, not recurring, but to help you.
Exactly, help us, yes.
Your question is, why do we have to pay it back?
Yes, sir.
My concern comes in with what it actually designated for in the beginning, is for capital outlay. And I understand there's the process of trying to convert it to operating funds. But I just don't know how critical upper management, like LGC or whatever, will look at those details and question the process that we took. That's the one area that would kind of concern me.
Okay.
I don't know how those finance officers would feel the same way, or
Just because of the words,
Yes.
unexpected and emergency.
You see, salaries are not
No, no, no.
emergency.
I'm talking about salaries. I'm talking about putting that in a fund balance and utilizing.
But then that fund balance goes to anything.
Let's stop.
Let's stop here.
Stop. Just stop. The way I understand it, and I keep looking at my finance officer and Mr. Sauer and Tobacco, they don't been in my ears for 2 months. They're saying January, really. But he just got here, so he's gonna say he just got here. That doesn't work. If this is a recurring cost, we cannot guarantee, or we will not put it without a tax increase to get another $887,520 next year, recurring after this year. That's the way I look at it. Whenever you do a recurring cost, that's a tax increase, period. We don't have a piggy bank over here with 880, we're gonna have to raise taxes, and that is not what expected from this board. We do not expect to raise taxes as long as we don't have to raise taxes. That's why I'm trying to get to this other part to talk about how we can get the point forward, because think about this. The people we're talking about cutting those hours, if they have to pay another 10 cents on the dollar on taxes, I don't think no one's gonna like that. See, that's what you gotta look, that's why it's a dance. Because when we have recurring costs and salaries, that's a tax increase. You can't get around it. It's not like we give you the money and then we find it, or, no such thing as found money. It's tax increase. So those same people we're trying to affect change in right now, if $887,520 will help you more than $600,000, I think we have on this board, yes, but it can't be recurring. Because if it's more than a one-time, that's a deal breaker, because that's a tax increase the next year to keep this money in your coffers. Am I making sense?
so.
Okay. That's why I'm getting at, we want to, but it's a tax increase that we cannot afford. On those same people, we're trying to keep their jobs. And other people's in the county. Property taxes hit everybody, even people who have lost a percentage of their salary. In other words, you're taking it right back from them. I'm a simple-minded person. I try to be simple. Did I say that right?
I don't think we answered Mr. Craddock's question.
Did we answer your question?
His question was, if you were to give us $887,000 or $600,000, will it allow us to not affect the 2.5 hours for the classified people and also affect the athletic department and the art department? Is that not your question?
That's his question.
So the question was if I gave you the 880.
No, that $887,000
It's not.
is for now.
It would not.
That's for next year.
Plus, you're gonna have to do the 800 plus the cuts.
Okay, in order to
correct?
not do the cuts, you as the board would have to allow that $133,000 plus the $13,000 in addition to what you're giving allotted to us in the yearly budget for next year.
It's a recurring cost.
Right.
We're not going to, we can't do
No,
that.
I was asking that
He
question.
was asking the
I was
question.
asking that question.
Yep, that's the question. He's answered the question. I think we answered the question.
Right,
We cannot do
correct.
a recurring cost. Because to do it, it's recurrent, and that's a tax increase. And we have set the expectation with the county manager and the finance director, we will not have a tax increase going forward. Not say we won't ever have a tax increase, because you don't never know. But right now, we're struggling with the county budget without a tax increase, and we can't fund all the needs we have. So, like I said again, sitting in these seats is like electrified. I don't care what you do, you're getting shocked. I think somebody's got a buzzer or something. You get shocked. But if you try to move this moves. So, what's your pleasure, Mr. Craddock? What is the figure we want to put in this document? Is it 600,000? Is it 887,520?
The 800,
What was it? 887?
866 of them.
887.
828. Is that the figure? That seems to be the figure coming from the Board of Commissioners. Do I have a consensus around this dais, on this dais behind this table of $828,000 one-time allocation in this document? Ms. Craddock? Oh, you gotta say yes or no? There was no motion.
So can,
Figure that y'all usually increase our appropriation every year. 50,000.
can,
Yeah, we'll get to that. That's gonna.
can, okay.
So that means during this year, we would need to say,
It,
But I think that's going to be part of what you have to address later.
Right.
If I'm,
You're right. I'm trying to get to the point of having a discussion of how we close that
I guess
gap.
my,
this memorandum straight.
We need to get one, like I said from the start, get one thing at a time, okay?
can,
I guess I think the biggest.
Board clerk, excuse me, Ms. Chestnut, come, while she's talking, come here, please. Go ahead, Ms. Hines.
Sorry, I think the biggest missing puzzle piece is I don't know if we can correctly put a number in this piece of documentation until we know what y'all are going to help
Right.
us with. Because,
Oh, we know.
do you?
The one-time funding that you're gonna get, that's it. I mean, for the number
I
current.
understand that, but I don't think.
We don't even know what that is until we work on it in the fall for the next year. So we can't make that, remember I said, we can't make that determination today. We can say that we're going to come back together and work on closing that gap that you see on that last page.
so can I ask just a clarifying question? And I'm trying to wrap my head around all of the questions and answers and get in the right place here. The funding, the one-time funding they're asking for is not going towards recurring fund. That's for this year. The question, because maybe I'm mishearing everybody, but I think a lot has been misinterpreted back and forth. That is not a recurring fund.
Nope.
So the reason your question earlier was about paying it back was if you do get the money from the state and you have to pay it back, then you lose the money from the state.
No.
Right, but you lose it, but I mean, essentially, you don't have either. So your question was about not having to pay it back, was if we do that, then we start fresh, if we get the state money and we're able to move forward using that. It doesn't turn the county money into recurring money. It's two separate things. So that's where your question was coming from. Okay.
You get that clarified?
Yes, just wanted to make sure that I understood what they were asking. They were saying with the request of it not having to be paid back, as it is a capital outlay, this is for the one-time fee for this school year. These funds would not be used in recurring funds. It's two separate things. But by having to pay back, if you do receive the funding from the state, then you lose the opportunity to use those funds for recurring.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, exactly.
Which becomes the
Mr.
issue. Where if you just had this and then that does get approved and come in, then you're able to move forward in a better place for our school system collectively without having to use our funds reoccurring. Correct. Okay. Two separate things.
I think that.
Look, don't do that. See what you
Right. But it's a current problem, not a future problem.
Okay, we're back on task. I apologize, I had to get something done.
Okay, that helped
Where were we?
me understand though. Articulating it is two different things.
Commissioner Craddock, do you have a motion on the floor?
I do. I'll make a motion to one-time fund of the $828,000 number.
Second that motion.
And wait till the clerk sits. We have a motion on the floor. It's been seconded that we allocate a one-time expenditure from the, let me get it right. I won't call it capital outlay fund. But what is what?
School capital reserve.
School capital reserve of $828,000. It was motioned by Vice Chair Craddock, seconded by Commissioner Roundtree.
And for clarification, that's using the instrument, the member.
Using the memorandum of agreement that we have before you,
Okay.
contingent on the Board of Education developing the resolution. We need a voice vote, starting with Commissioner Roundtree.
Aye.
Craddock.
Aye.
Hoffler. Truman. Really? Aye. What'd you say? I thought you said aye.
I didn't say anything yet.
Okay, aye or nay?
We're eyeing to approve all of the parameters in this agreement.
Yes. With, only change is 800 and... I
That's
lost
my
page.
holdup right now, is I was asking a question prior to the vote, and I don't know that we came to where I needed to be for that answer. Which at this point, I suppose it doesn't matter if a four.
No, it does matter. You have to vote.
I mean, if my
But
vote
still,
of
you
nay
be on
doesn't
record.
matter.
It's your vote.
I mean, I approve of the amount. I disagree with some of the parameters of the understanding.
Yay or nay with the motion on the floor?
Nay.
Motion carries. Okay. So Superintendent, you get the resolution ready with consensus of your board. You work with Mr. Sauer and the finance director, two finance directors, Ms. Pittman. I probably won't see you again. I just want to make sure that I thank you for your service to the county.
And Madam Chair, if I could just suggest, I hope what this action today does is going to give the superintendent the ability to plan for the new school year, regardless how long it takes the General Assembly to get their budget done. And hopefully, once that budget's done, we could reconvene the two boards and bring our legislators in to talk with them about how difficult this process was, and maybe there's still some things they can do for us in the future. But and I would hope for this. Are we going to ask the Board of Education to take action this morning too? Is that
Sure, you have to
on
vote
this
to
agreement?
accept this agreement. I'm gonna leave that, wait a minute, I'm gonna leave that to Chairman Felton. But you can go, before he,
My question was, Mrs. Howard, so if you do this 828,000, it's going to reduce that $2 million down to $1.2 million that you're referring to, that we had allocated. It's just the county.
Yes, that's correct. That's correct.
to ask for a vote to, a motion to, y'all do.
Mr. Chairman, I can motion that we approve the memorandum of agreement between the Commissioners and the Board of Education.
Here's a second. Have a motion and a second. Brown, how do you do?
Yes.
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 Ms. Allen?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. I see your clerk writing feverishly. Okay. So we lock y'all in, okay?
Madam Chair, I have a question. Do we ever give a time frame for the resolution to be complete?
When did you say you was going to try and get this, 2014? Okay, what I can do is I can call a Zoom meeting with the Board of Education. I can have a resolution. Give me at least a Thursday because I got to go to Raleigh and talk to
Well, the board has a meeting on the 14th, so they could,
I can.
Concur
Plus,
then.
I got that 48 hours.
Mhm.
That's no problem. You can Zoom it, get it done.
You can use it.
Yeah, we can do Zoom, and then we get that knocked in. I'll have a resolution. I'll just be on Thursday.
Okay, thank you.
I'm gonna ask the superintendent to come back to the podium, please. Bring your little cheat sheet with you.
Last night, it was honored as superintendent of the year.
Oh. Oh.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Mr. Felton, you told me that before, I wouldn't have been so hard on him. On that last, not the last page, but the page that has Gates County Public Schools 7-year budget requests and allocations, if you turn to that, this is what we're going to discuss, and I may be, I just feel that when you try to right the ship, you have to have some type of plan and collaboration with it. So when I looked at the school year, you see the far left column all the way across. You see what the school system requests as allocation in the general fund. Then you see what the county allocated as general fund. Then you see the difference in the request and allocation. And what I noticed when I saw this plan is that you continually go up, which is it's understandable. Your allocations or requests have been going up, except for 1 year, I think. But the county allocation from the general fund is almost flat. Now, I know there's a floor, I call it the floor, that we must fund. It's some kind of convoluted formula they use. I don't understand it. I'm not supposed to. Somebody over in front of me should probably. Yeah. So there's a floor where we must fund. And then, realistically, there are other expenses and needs of the school system. What I noticed when I looked at this for the first time, I've never seen it this way. I'm a visual person. You can tell me all day long, but if I see it, then I can unpack it. So as I was trying to unpack this, it seems to me that for the last 7 years that, the school system has been asking for, and rightfully so, I'm not saying you shouldn't, allocation that to run the school system. The county has stayed flat for whatever reason. And these are the short one in red at the far right. That's the gap. when I talked with Mr. Sauer and also Finance Director, but basically with the superintendent, I said, what's in this allocation request? Now, we know we don't need to know everything in it, but I'm in a position with the commissioner, it's needed. You wouldn't ask for it. Okay, we need to look at this going forward. We can't unring the bell. We cannot undo what anybody does. And that's why I keep telling people, you know, you're wasting positive energy trying to point fingers. You're wasting energy trying to put people's names in plans. We don't need to know the employees. Superintendent does and his staff. So we can't go back and fix 2017 to 2023. Now, we've made some stopgaps in 23, 24. That's why I want to do that first, okay? Now we want to look at going forward. My assumption is, or my plan and expectation is that these two boards work together collaboratively, trying to bridge this or close this gap or all this red over here and get closer to the allocation that you asked. But in doing that, we need an analysis, a deep analysis of these allocations. We need to know what's in this pie. I'll call everything a pie. You only got one pie. We need to know what's baked in the pie every year. Not everything, because you're going to have assumptions, you're going to have flexibility, you're going to have things that's going to break and things you're going to do. But we need to know what's in there before you ask for it if you can. That makes sense? So what I propose, as speaking for the Board of Commissioners, is that we use our staff, our county manager, your superintendent, their finance directors, to look at this. Now, most of the work's going to be on your part in first, that second column, because that's that's what you asked for. So we don't know, but I want them to think about, and you to think about, going forward. We need to meet more than when there's an emergency. We need to meet sometime early fall to get ourselves together. Meet again in late fall before I heard January. When you start working. Well, we usually start in December. Now, I don't know what Mr. Sauer was going to do. He's been here since February 13th. So, we haven't been here a month. But the thing that's on my heart is we should look at closing this gap as much as we can. All this red over here every year. And I think we just do what's been done. You know, sometimes we do what's been done. We don't ask the question because it's the easiest thing to do. That's what they always did. You know, we need to look at this because that could affect an increase in your allocations that we approve for you. That makes sense? But we need to know going forward, not back, going forward, what is in your allocation request. We don't need to know every little thing, but we need to know the big items. You know, something happened to go from 2021 from 3.5 million to 3.8 million for 23, 24. It may be inflation, but we need to know that before you come and do the big presentation in March, April, and here be sitting with a $815,000 difference. Maybe we can't do it all in 1 year, but since we have this 7-year plan, if you plan and the county plans, guess what? I think we can be impactful in closing this gap, because then we can have foreknowledge or be forewarned of what's coming before it hits us with the big presentation that I've been sitting to for two years. You know, I'm like, really? In my mind, I got a thought bubble. I'm like, really? Where do we get that money from? So we didn't ask, as a county, not talking about us, we did not ask the questions about your request to the point that we had time enough, if possible, to affect change. That makes sense? At least we can have the conversation. So I just want a consensus. Is that something that these two boards are willing to do, to stop meeting one time in the spring, hit us up with this is what we need, this is why. If we have a collaborative engagement, early August, I know school opens in August. Once you get school open and settle down, you know, and you could be working on it with Mr. Sauer and your finance people and William all along. We don't need to be involved in figuring this out, but you do, these two staff persons do. And then we come back and sit down and say, well, this is what it's looking, this is a forecast. That may change. But just meeting once when there's an emergency, I love seeing y'all, but I want to be positive. I want to be proactive and not reactive. like we had to be this time. That makes sense?
Yes.
So when you were talking all along, I already was thinking in my mind, they're right on point, they're looking at my notes. And at some point, we want to bring in Dr. Bagwell from COA, and let's hear from him. What is he doing to impact change in Gage County? What is he doing with the workforce development piece? What is he willing to put on in this county? What is he willing, he meaning COA, because that's who we help fund. We send appropriations, they're in our region, and so we help fund COA based on the small, and of course, we don't pay as much as some people.
A lot of our students go there during the high school years.
And we need to get him involved as well, to sit with us. Wouldn't that be nice to have the community college, the school district, and the board of commissioners sitting around, probably at the mill pond, on a retreat, talking about the future needs and finances of the school system? We are sitting here today because of those kids and their parents and the employees, and we need to do better. So, Mr. Superintendent, I want to hear from you. You put this together, and not only that, we're looking at the capital outlay. He has done a yeoman's job with capital outlay. Every dollar he brings in that we don't match helps the county.
Yes.
That makes sense. I see $200,000 here every single year. Now you look at 2017, 18, and 23, 24, and you tell me about inflation and cost. $200,000 every year. We got to do better. Those children, that school system, our school system, is an infrastructure need. When I speak of infrastructure, it's just not bricks and mortar and water and wastewater and broadband. It's the school system as well and those employees that work there. That makes sense? Yes. It's infrastructure. This is we try to we build and strengthen the infrastructure in this county. And it's not just what you see, the broadband trucks running up and down the road and water, wastewater, and everybody hates and everything. It's also the school system. It's also the staff in the county that works for the local county. Those people, I come across the street and in this building and spread out all over the county. That's the infrastructure that we also have to pay attention to. The people that do the essential work, and everybody's essential, that's an infrastructure need in Gage County. It's been stagnant too long. We need to pay attention to our employees on both sides, all over this county. But we also got to remember, everybody's essential. So, Mr. County Manager, I've told him, I've said this to him before, Wim has had it before, we expect as a board a planned budget. And we've never had a planned budget in this county. Oh yeah. So as he begins to wrap this budget up and start and plan for next year, it's the expectation, I'm speaking into existence today, it's the expectation of the board that when he starts next year's budget, it starts early and starts setting the seed and the department heads that you must have a 1 to 3 year planned budget. The same way I just said that we sit here and wait till you hook up in March, it's the same thing that we sit here, here they come. With big ticket items that we had no visibility of and we can't do. You can do a lot of things, but you shouldn't do it. Everything's begin with the budget and the budget process. Everything. You can't get away from it. So as I asked you to sit with us, I'm asking the county manager to take his time and sit with the department heads to plan a departmental budget that folds into the county budget. You have a planned budget that folds into what? The county budget. Not saying you're going to get everything you ask for, but we can spread it out. And I know you asked about going forward, about recouping the hours that your staff is going. Who knows what could happen next year? It's recurring costs, because that's why you had to cut it. But who knows what the future holds. But I tell you what, if we don't take control of this, we're going to be reactionary, and that's not good. But if we do some impactful thinking and look at the positions across this county, not just at the Board of Education, to make the decisions to write the infrastructure of this county. You're an infrastructure.
Thank you, Dr. Reddy. I think that sounds really good. I think that's important to do. It's almost you practice, get it right. It's actually what you're saying. If you go to that page that I have, and I don't have it numbered, I'll put it together again, we'll number it. But Dr. Riddick asked, what happened right there at 2020 and 2021? You just asked for $3,257,400. Well, we had something called COVID come in, so we didn't have to need the substitutes. We didn't have to do the things that we usually do because we had kids at home, we weren't in school. I do want you to know that, I had a wise lady tell me that you only have one pie. And so we go by that pie, and this is a document that we submit to each of you every time we come to the budget. And it does detail, like for here, regular educational services, that budget amount is $435,625. And our special population services, it gives that amount. And it goes all the way down to nutritional services and payment of other governments. But it does not include things, when you turn over to what I asked for, there's things that like state mandated salary and benefit increases. That's $308,000. Now, Governor Cooper and I, he's in my cell phone and I can call him and sometimes I can get him and sometimes I can't. But he's asking for an 18% increase in salary. Senate, and they're asking in the House of 4.5%. So that affects how, isn't that right, Ms. J. Cox? That affects how we budget and how we do things as far as the things that we have to look at that we don't know, like 3% salary increase on this budget, 26% retirement rate, which is a 1.5% increase. So those are the things that we look at that me and Mr. Sauer can talk about in the fall, like you say. And you know what, not just once in the fall, I think several meetings.
That's up to y'all.
Just across the street, it's not that far. So with that being said, yes, I went back to 2017, could well all the way back to 2011, and what we've asked for and what we received and what we got and what we didn't get. That's important, but I understand what you're saying. You don't want this roller coaster of where things are going because you can't plan.
We can't plan.
If you don't know our plan. And so I think getting Dr. Bagwell up here is fantastic. Now we're talking about instructional services of what he can provide us. Okay, we don't have a brick and mortar in Gates County, but him coming up here can do a lot of good things. I really like that idea. So just to know, and then when you go down to the capital outlay, let's not forget and let's be mindful that we do have something called, it's R&R, what's that, repair and renovations fund. So we got like 500 plus another 300, that's 800,000 also that I can do to fix up my facilities, which I have to do some things at Buckland and I have to do some things at Cooper. I think all these facilities are really going to be, you see the high school, it's going to look brand new. And it's not what you have, it's what you take care of. So this is the piece that I think that you're looking at. I can even go deeper. I'm going to miss Miss Pittman. I wish her very well wishes in her next opportunity. But this lady that's sitting right next to her is Miss J. Cox, Crystal J. Cox. And she will be our interim finance officer. And she will most definitely do a fantastic job. But I just wanted to introduce her in case you didn't know her. She's great. But yes, as you said, capital outlay, we're doing really well on that. And we appreciate the 200 because it does help us.
Yes,
but with the R&R funds, that helps us too as well. And all that goes through DPI, which comes to the county. But I hope I answered your question. I hope I didn't talk too long.
And I appreciate you elaborating on it. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that the buildings and grounds of the local government, Mr. Sauer, we have some buildings that need some R&R as well, and we're struggling to prioritize those as well. We're going to go after grant funding if we can for some of the things that we need. There's so much money out there, but it's so much criteria. It's not for buildings and grounds, really, in the county government. So you have access to more opportunities than we do because of criteria and all of that. But we're going to do what we can. I just wanted to close with saying that we are good partners. This is an infrastructure as far as I'm concerned. It's just not when you hear me talk about or the commissioners talk about infrastructure. You're part of that infrastructure of this county. and it has to be taken care of. The challenge is you never have enough resources for the needs you have. So you have to plan very carefully, make those tough decisions, just like anyone that's elected or appointed, you just got to do it. And hopefully the decisions you make will level out, you know, in the long run. And maybe it'll help in the short run too. But always know that the Board of Commissioners of Gates County, we're not combative. We want to collaborate. We want to be proactive. And this administration around this desk with Mr. Sauer and Mr. Robinson and others in the county government, his finance team is fantastic. And we're going to work toward repairing the infrastructure, staffing of this county. It's just like we working on water and wastewater. It's just that that's a recurring cost. It's more difficult to do because when you do that, you're talking about taxes. And we know that we're 84 cents now? And we're going to hesitate to raise that unless it's absolutely necessary. And when you get a grant that you know you don't match like the school board has done for capital outlay, that's a blessing. And we appreciate everything you do. Those employees, all of them are essential, just like all the employees that work for this Gates County are essential. I think this has been a good meeting, a fruitful, impactful meeting. I think we're going to leave here just as friendly as we were when we came. But you're on a journey.
Can I say one thing before you give the adjournment? I go to Raleigh here as soon as I depart here. I'm going to meet with a gentleman named Edward Stiles. Edward Stiles, he works with Senator Hannig. When I was down in his office a couple months ago with ex-Senator Steinberg, I went up and I looked, you know, he said, Barry, here's what we got on the computer for Gates County. We got Navy uniforms, 200,000. We got technology, 500,000. We got, anyway, it totaled up to $10 million. So he had that on his computer, and you'll see a lot of times in the budget, the state budget, it will say like Columbus County or Bertie County or whatever, they got this special allocation. So I'm sweating bullets. I want them to help me because I know if I can go out and get that money and get that help, that don't help just you. That just don't help my school board. That helps my students, which eventually is going to help the county. I just want to say that real quick.
Any closing remarks from the Board of Education members or the chair? I recognize the chair and the vice chair.
Just a quick question. I don't think it's a hard question.
Okay.
I know that we have to do the resolution, and you said you hope to have that by June 15. Will we on June 15th also know what you're giving us with our regular allocation?
Should be. The board has a public hearing on the 14th.
14th.
And then anytime after that, they could adopt the budget that night. They could go a few days. But the
We gotta have it done by July 1st.
But the amount today is the 2,900,000 and whatever is the current appropriation, is the number that's recommended for July 1.
Okay.
Unless this board changes. I mean,
We have a work session tomorrow. We have a board meeting tomorrow at 6:30. Our regular board, no, it's a special meeting. It's a work session, and we'll discuss all of the allocations that have been recommended by the county manager last week. We've had it for a week to look at, and we'll discuss that point by point if that's what the commissioners want to do tomorrow night at 6:30. And then on the 14th, like Mr. Sauer said, that's our public hearing on the budget. And if it's approved, then we move forward, and that'll wrap that up for this year.
That's 2.9, that's what we got.
Okay.
So that's what Mr. Sauer said.
That's why it's important we start meeting to see if we can affect some change. We don't know. No one knows what we're going to do as far as budget with the state and federal dollars that's fluctuating. COVID's gone, that money's gone. It's just wreaking havoc across the United States. And now we have to replace what I call it replace what we purchased with COVID. And we got to figure out a way to replace it because COVID is gone. So we understand the challenges you have. Again, I thank you for sharing this morning with us.
I have a question. brought up information about it being flat for several years back. Isn't that flat still remaining flat?
Mm-hmm. I think
So it's going to remain flat again this year. You can give us the same.
that's up to the board.
Oh, it's up to the board.
Yes, sir.
We haven't, we just, no,
We're gonna have to run our budget.
we had the regular
That's
recommendation
what's in the
last week.
proposed budget, yes.
That's it, yeah.
Yes.
Now,
But we have to hear it from
Ms. Hyde.
all departments
Ms.
too.
Hyde,
And
back-
everybody has crying needs. You're not the only,
And that's gonna be 14.
yes.
I just I wanna say thank you for having me here today and hearing us and, the idea of having working, meetings in the future. I think that's super imperative for both of our boards. I know a lot of people go by the whole quote, if it's not broke, don't fix it, but there's a lot broken going on, and as you can see here from the previous years, just because it's what's done doesn't mean it's right.
mm-hmm.
So I really, implore you guys to like, dig deep within who you guys are, to see if we can't be better for everybody.
We want to do better and do it right. I'm on another board, and one thing I told the CFO on that board is they weren't ready to presentation to the board of directors. And they were antsy. I says, I'd rather have it right than ready. I'd rather have it right than ready. So we delayed that meeting, just like we delayed these meetings, because Mr. Sauer and Mr. Robinson were not ready according to the schedule that we approved in December. People didn't understand, why are you moving the meeting? It's not about moving the meeting, it's about having it right, not ready. And by statute, we can do that. As long as I give notice, just like the superintendent said, he has to give notice. It has nothing to do with time. Statute does not say, I gotta have it in the morning, gotta have it in the evening. I try to have meetings when the public can come, if they want to show. If not, guess what? There it is. They can be around it all day long, look at you all of y'all all day, if they want to. Let's run that back, see what Ms. Jordan said. You good? I saw you talking to me. Do I have a motion to adjourn from the?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We all adjourn.
See y'all tomorrow at, what time we meet tomorrow? 6:30.